Hello and welcome to the Football Word. I'm Doug Kide. This is Zach Cox, and quite frankly, there's not a whole lot going on in the NFL and the Patriots world right now, but somehow we still found plenty of things to talk about on today's show. This morning, you wrote about the AFC East. I wrote about the AFC East a little bit earlier last month, I think, just kind of going through what some of the moves have been. What have you seen so far from the AFC East? Because I have kind of an idea of the team that I think that could actually compete. I think that everyone kind of has a pretty good idea of who that is. But what did you see from the AFC East so far early in free agency?
Well, I'd say that team is probably the Miami Dolphins, which is the team that did come closest to competing with the Patriots this past year. They went back to the playoffs for the first time since 2008. I believe it was the first time any team from the AFC East has made it other than the Patriots since 2008. And I'm going to pull up the exact list that I had because both the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins had pretty okay off seasons so far. The Bills, obviously, they lost a lot of big names. They lost, obviously, Stephon Gilmore was the biggest because that made a division rival much better while making your own defense much worse. But they also lost Zach Brown, who really came on incredibly strong as a 27-year-old.
Strange that they let him go because he didn't sign for much money
in Washington.
Market.
That was strange. They also lost their second and third wide receivers behind Sammy Watkins. So they did have a lot of holes, but they did do some things well. I mean, they brought back Tyrod Taylor. I believe he took a $10 million pay cut. I think it was a ridiculous pay cut to keep him around. They also they got Micah Hyde, who everybody's really high on from the versatile defensive back from the Green Bay Packers. But yeah, I think Miami is still definitely the team that could come closest to competing with the Patriots in this coming season. New York Jets, we're not even going to talk about them. They haven't done a thing. I was looking for kind of the most high-profile move from each of these teams. Their most high-profile moves are signing Kelvin Beachum and Chandler Catanzaro, who I don't think anybody wants to put on any kind of marquee.
No, I think their most high-profile move was buying the cupcakes for Dante Hightower this offseason. Just bringing him in for the visit, that was probably the biggest thing that they did.
And they went around, they got rid of Darrelle Revis, Nick Mangold, Brandon Marshall, kind of these big-time players. But even as productive as the Dolphins' offseason has been so far, I mean, they brought in Julius Thomas. Tight end was a real deficiency of theirs last year. They brought T.J. McDonald in, who won't play for the first 8 games because he's suspended, but he does have some potential at safety. And they also had Lawrence Timmons, which I think was their biggest signing. But the Dolphins and the Bills, both of their off seasons really pale in comparison to the Patriots. I mean, it's the saying, the rich get richer, and that's exactly what's happened this year so far.
You know, what I kind of liked what the Dolphins did was that they didn't make those huge splashy free agent moves that you usually see from teams in the AFC East. They're desperately trying to compete with the Patriots. They always make these high-profile signings. They never really seem to work out. What the Dolphins did is they kind of kept their roster intact a little bit. They brought back Andre Branch. They brought back some of their receivers. Who was it? It was Kenny Stills that they had to re-sign. So they've got what's in place to potentially compete again. I know that their schedule was a little bit easy last year. That's part of the reason why they did go 10-6 and made the playoffs. But if you can assume some improvement out of guys like Jay Ajayi, some of those receivers, some of their offensive linemen, I think that Laramie Tunsil is going to be really key for them playing left tackle this year. I think that they could improve a little bit, and maybe that means going 10-6 again. Maybe that means going 11-5. Maybe that means making the playoffs again. But if the Patriots didn't have quite as good of an offseason, I think you might be having those conversations at this point in the offseason when there's not a whole lot else going on of, can the Dolphins compete for the AFC East? It's unrealistic because of how good of an offseason the Patriots had, but I liked what they did, and they did kind of stand pat. They re-signed their own guys. They've got the pieces in place. Now it's just about getting those pieces to improve, and the real guy who has to improve, obviously, is Ryan Tannehill, but potentially he could maybe take like a quarter of the next step with a second season under Adam Gase.
Yeah, I think you look at this Dolphins team and you say...
There goes my keys.
It's all right. Live TV. Not really. Tape TV. Right, yeah. But you look at this Dolphins team, and I see a team that can very easily make it back to the playoffs next year. I think they can definitely be a wild card team, maybe even a better, because I don't think we really gave them all that much of a chance in the wild card round against the Steelers last year. I think they could be a team that maybe the Texans have been in the last couple of years, where they can make the playoffs, you're confident they can win a round, then they might hit the Patriots, and it might be all done from there. Yeah. But yeah, just with how productive the Patriots have been this offseason, nobody's even coming close.
Yeah,
I don't see anybody even remotely in the same neighborhood as the Patriots right now.
No, and we've talked at length, obviously, about what the Patriots have done, but obviously they did bring in Brandon Cooks, Dwayne Allen, Coney Ely, Stephon Gilmore. They re-signed Dante Hightower. So yeah, that is very difficult to compete with, but I think that one last thing on the Dolphins is that maybe they did sign some of their guys like Andre Branch, Kiko Alonso for a little bit too much money, but I think that just keeping those pieces in place is worthwhile, and it is worth potentially giving them a little bit too much money just because they did succeed last year, and potentially they will take that next step this year.
Yeah, and I mean, if you play in the AFC East, you know that you need to go above and beyond you're already at a disadvantage of pretty much every other team in the NFL because the Patriots are in your division. So you know that you have to be almost better than maybe a divisional contender in another division to even have a chance. So I don't really blame them for these were maybe they paid a little bit too much for some of their own guys, but it's better to. I think it's better to do that than to go break the bank on some high-profile, questionable free agents, and they stayed away from doing that.
And the Dolphins are. I mean, I don't know their off-season needs quite as well as the Patriots, obviously, but they're pretty much going in the draft with their starters set. It seems like. Whereas
seems like they need help at guard, both of the guard spots, especially since Laramie Tunsil's now playing tackle. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting is that that's their one big glaring weakness so far.
They do have Jermon Bushrod. They did sign Ted Larson, so potentially those guys would fit in, but they probably could use a little bit of help there. Whereas the Bills, just going back to them for a little bit, they definitely need help at wide receiver. Really, their only receiver worth a damn on the team is Sammy Watkins, and they really need help at cornerback after getting rid of or losing Stephon Gilmore. They've got obviously Ronald Darby there, and perhaps Micah Hyde could play a little bit of the slot position, but they're really probably going to go into this offseason looking for a cornerback because they lost their nickel cornerback as well, and Nickel
Roby Coleman.
Nickel Roby Coleman. There we go. Let's move on a little bit here to running backs for the Patriots. I wrote a piece last night, posted this morning, just going through some of the potential fits for the Patriots at running back, and it's really difficult. I know that we've probably talked about this before. It's really difficult to find a potential running back for the Patriots because really you're looking for a guy who almost never fumbles. You're looking for a guy with a 3-cone at or under 7 seconds. You're looking for a guy who's good in pass protection. And if you're looking for an early down running back, which is what the Patriots probably are doing right now, then you're looking for a guy who's over 215 pounds. So needless to say, there is no perfect running back for the Patriots in this draft. Two guys that really stood out to me, though, were Wisconsin running back Corey Clement and Wyoming running back Brian Hill. They really do hit most of these marks. Clement doesn't really have the experience that the Patriots usually look for in a pass blocker, but perhaps that's something that could be coached up a little bit. Same really goes for Brian Hill. He's experienced as a pass blocker, but he wasn't fantastic in that role. The other thing is that he did have a 7.03 second 3-cone, not quite under 7 seconds, but the Patriots did show in the past when they drafted James White that they will overlook that a little bit. I think James White ran a 7.05 3-cone. So those are the two guys that really stand out to me. One thing that was really kind of glaring to me is that other than Christian McCaffrey, there's not a lot of guys who will go in early rounds that would probably fit the Patriots in this draft. Just part of the reason of that is because they reportedly won't touch Joe Mixon. So even if they did, go up into the first or second round, even if a guy like Mixon falls to 72, they probably won't take a guy like that just because of the off-field issues that he has.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe Mixon actually would be a pretty good fit on the Patriots and on most teams, but they do have that hardline stance there, which is completely understandable.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I like Brian Hill. I feel like he's a guy that we've kind of had our eye on a little bit. I watched him play a little bit at Wyoming. I think they played BYU in one of those bowl games. And he was obviously he's an under the radar guy because he plays in Wyoming. Nobody really watches Wyoming football, but he's definitely a guy that kind of fits the Patriots prototype, and a guy that probably won't be a draftable prospect, maybe a late round. As a guy I actually talked to the other day, Dalton Crossan. He plays at UNH, so it's at the FCS level. Obviously, not quite the competition that some of these other guys have played in, but he's versatile. He said he's worked out for a couple teams. The Patriots have actually shown some pretty significant interest in him. They actually ran the UNH Pro Day, so the whole Pro Day was basically a Patriots workout. He said he had a long chat with them when he was at the football gridiron showcase, or college gridiron showcase, down in Dallas a couple months ago. And he's a versatile dude. He said he had a workout with the Seahawks, and they used him exclusively as a wide receiver. So they just lined him up in the slot the entire time. I mean, we obviously know how Bill Belichick loves these versatile guys, and people look at Dalton Crossan and stereotypically they'll say, oh, that guy should play on the Patriots.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you look at his game, I could definitely see them taking either a late round flyer or signing him as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, I think that if they did bring in Crossan, like you said, either as a 7th rounder, 6th rounder, or as an undrafted free agent, you'd probably be looking at him kind of competing for the same role as DJ Foster.
Yep.
Kind of similar players in the fact that they probably can play a little bit of receiver, can play running back. He's kind of a poor man's Christian McCaffrey, I'd probably describe him as in this draft. If you can't get McCaffrey in the first round, maybe you can get a player like him in Dalton Crossan in the late round. So he's definitely an
kind
interesting
of a developmental dude, yeah.
Yeah, developmental guy, runs a great 3-cone. He's got the quickness that they usually look for. And I mean, the Patriots could be looking for a slot receiver in this draft too. So if they do believe that he could play slot receiver, maybe he's a guy that you store for a little while and then wait for either Danny Amendola or Julian Edelman to leave, and then maybe he would be ready at that point to step into what is a very important role for the Patriots in the offense.
He does say that. I asked him what NFL player he would compare himself most to. I thought he would say a running back, but he said Julian Edelman. He said he believes his skill set is very comparable, even though obviously Julian Edelman's a wide receiver.
Right.
He's a running back, but he's the kind of guy that he's really a tweener between the two. He can play both positions, which would be very beneficial for an NFL team.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on once more to kind of the Boston sports as a whole, because obviously the Red Sox are just starting their season up. The Celtics and Bruins are both heading into the playoffs. And in all of these games, you see Patriots players at the games. Obviously, in the Red Sox opener, you had Deion Lewis there, you had Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady, James White. At the Bruins game the other day, we saw Steven Gostkowski there and Tom Brady. At the Celtics games, it seems like LeGarrette Blount is there almost every single day.
He's basically a season ticket holder.
Yeah, he really is. He's always there, by courtside talking to Isaiah Thomas. So, I guess the question here is: are the Patriots putting pressure on these other teams to also win championships? I know that it's been a little while for the Bruins and the Celtics at this point. Or when did the Bruins win those Stanley Cup?
Bruins were 11.
11. Red
Celtics
Sox
were
in 2008.
Red Sox were 2013, yeah.
So it's been a little while longer for them. The Patriots have won 2 championships since any other Boston sports team has won 1. So what do you think? You think they're putting some pressure on these teams here?
I think so. I mean, obviously not consciously. They're not, the players aren't putting pressure on the other, but the success of the franchise, especially in a city now like Boston that has been very, very spoiled, honestly, for the last almost 20 years with their teams winning championships and competing for championships. I've noticed in the last couple of years, like when the Celtics kind of took their slide down after the Big Three era ended and they missed the playoffs for a couple of years, they completely fell off the Boston sports, the consciousness, the radar of sports fans in this town, other than diehard Celtics fans. And then you saw the same thing happen with the Bruins. I mean, they lost in the Stanley Cup Final in 2013. They missed the playoffs 2 years later, 2 years in a row. They're completely off the map. Some people would say that they're like bottom of the totem pole of the 4 teams, and that's what happens if you don't compete for championships, just because the Patriots have been so dominant. I mean, even the Red Sox traditionally have been the #1 team in Boston, but they went 2 years with finishing last place in their division. Everybody stopped paying attention to them in mid-June, mid-July.
Right.
So teams basically in Boston, you need to win for people to pay attention to you, and I mean, that's kind of the Patriots doing, and the rest of the teams have played into that because they've had very great success in these last 20 years too. But the Patriots are the only team that's been consistently top, basically contending for a Super Bowl every single year. So when other teams slide, it's a lot more noticeable.
I'd say that also right now, probably the best chance of those 3 other teams to win a championship, probably the Red Sox. I mean, anything can happen in the NHL playoffs, so we'll kind of see what happens with the Bruins here. But Celtics probably at least another year off before they're talking about winning in the finals. But I mean, it's pretty exciting time for Boston sports right now. It's great. With the Celtics and Bruins both heading in the playoffs. Red Sox, they're certainly built to compete for a World Series.
And you see the Patriots effect with the Celtics. The Celtics could be the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And everybody's kind of looking at this season as like, it's okay. I mean, maybe they'll win a round or 2, but like. This is the #1 team in the Eastern Conference, and nobody, since they don't have a very legitimate, realistic chance of winning the title, everybody's just kind of discounting them. They're like, playoffs will be fun, whatever.
It's been a cute season.
It's kind of crazy. If you look at it, I mean, it just goes back to Boston sports fans being spoiled. I mean, have a team from Kansas City or something get a top seed in the playoffs, fans are going to be all over them. And I feel like, obviously, the interest in the Celtics and the Bruins has heightened since they're actually good again now, which is awesome. Boston is a better place when the Celtics and the Bruins, especially the Bruins. Boston's a better place when there's playoff hockey. I'm very, very excited that the Bruins are back in the playoffs just to get the the city's it's just more fun. There's a buzz about it. It's awesome. At this time, the last couple of years, everything's been kind of trending down. We got mid-season baseball, football's over, kind of boring.
Right.
Now it's exciting, but yeah, even if you make the playoffs, you've got to actually win for teams to for fans to fully pay attention to you around here.
I think
it's tough, but
one other kind of interesting thing is that I know that it's been talked about before how after the Patriots won the Super Bowl, then everyone else went on the runs of championship games. I don't think it's specifically one sport lifting up the spirit of all the other sports. I don't think that there's some great connection there. But one point that you brought up is that when a team does start to fall off, the interest kind of wanes for that team, and then that might put some more pressure on the ownership or on the front office to build up that team a little bit more. And I mean, obviously every team wants to win anyway, but when interest starts to wane a little bit, then maybe you do want to compete a little bit more. And we saw that with the Bruins this year. They've really come on late, and Celtics certainly are at their best in a while at this point too.
You got to stay relevant. Yeah. I mean, I feel like teams in Boston are less inclined as teams from other cities to be like, all right, we're going to take a step back. It might be like a 3-year rebuild. I mean, even though that is kind of what the Celtics did, it's harder to do that in Boston with the media here, with the fans here. There are expectations, and teams need to meet them, or they kind of fall off the radar. So
for all the pressure on the other teams playing the Patriots, they're now on that 2-championship run, putting a lot of pressure on the Bruins, Red Sox, and Celtics. Anything else you want to discuss on this week's episode of The Football Word? I always put the pressure on you here.
I guess we can quickly touch on the latest edition of Reportedly Could. The new development in the Jimmy Garoppolo saga is that now the Browns have basically given up hope of trading for him, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, although they still may make one final push. So who knows there?
One final push. Reportedly could make one final push. We'll see what happens. I mean, at this point, it seems like anything that's going to happen with Garoppolo or Butler will probably happen a little bit closer to the draft. So we're still talking about 2-3 weeks away from anything major happening, but we will keep our ears to the grindstone?
Nose to the grindstone.
Nose to the grindstone.
We can put their ears there too, though.
I'm going to put, my nose is down by the grindstone, my ears are not close behind, so that's what we'll be doing, nose and ears by the grindstone. Come back on Thursday for Between the Tackles. For now, this has been this week's episode of The Football Word.